What if the reason you keep failing, to learn a new language has literally nothing to do with your intelligence? Like, what if it's actually that hyper-organized seven-color study schedule you just spent 3 hours making?
Yeah, I mean, it is a really harsh reality to confront. But the very things we think are setting us up for success, right? The pristine notebooks, the rigid schedules, they're often the exact traps that guarantee we will quit by Thursday.
Right, exactly. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're dissecting the real, very messy experiences of language learners.
We are, and we're working with a fascinating transcript today from a language learning video where two speakers they lay all their past learning failures right out on the table.
And our mission today is to uncover exactly how beginners can avoid those common motivation-killing mistakes when starting out. We are going to explore why your complex, ambitious study plans are secretly sabotaging you, and how to drastically simplify the way you actually acquire and retain new vocabulary.
Which is so crucial for anyone listening who feels stuck.
Oh, 100%. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to figure out how to learn effectively, we first have to look at how we spectacularly fail right out of the gate.
Right, and the sources provide this painfully relatable example of that initial failure. One of the speakers recounts finding an old vocabulary notebook. Page 1, Monday, the plan is to learn 50 new words.
Wow, 50 words, which is just, an incredible cognitive load for a single day.
Precisely, and the notebook reflects that, because page 2, Tuesday, the plan was to review those 50 words and learn 50 more.
Let me guess, Wednesday did not go well.
Not at all. Page 3, Wednesday, is completely blank. The excuse written later was just, I was busy.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Page 4, Thursday, also blank with the note, it was a difficult week. And the rest of the notebook is just empty pages.
That is so sad.
It is. And they also describe a study schedule they built to go with this notebook. It featured 7 different color codes, multiple categories, tiny tick boxes, and arrows connecting different tasks.
See, I have to admit, part of me hears 7-color schedule with arrows and thinks, well, that sounds like a masterpiece of personal organization. I would be very proud of that chart.
I mean, most of us would be.
Yeah.
The problem is the lifespan of that magnificent system. Because according to the source, the entire 7-color ecosystem collapsed in exactly 4 days.
4 days. You barely even get to use all the colored pens.
Exactly.
It reminds me of the classic New Year's resolution gym burnout. You know the exact scenario.
Oh, absolutely.
It's December 31st. You decide you're going to get in the best shape of your life. So you go online, you buy the $200 shoes, the specialized sweat-wicking gear, and, the custom water bottle that tracks your hydration.
Right. You need all the gear.
You do, and you meticulously map out a routine where you'll do high-intensity interval training for 2 hours every single day at 5 a.m., and planning it feels incredible.
You get a massive dopamine rush just conceptualizing the routine.
Yes, but then January 12th rolls around, it's freezing cold outside, you're exhausted from a late shift, and the entire plan instantly shatters because it demands a level of perfection that your real life just cannot support.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of why we build these elaborate traps for ourselves. We experience a cognitive distortion, basically.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, we mistakenly equate the complexity of our plan with the quality of our learning. Like I said, we get that dopamine hit from the organization process itself.
So the brain feels like it's accomplished something major just by drawing the arrows and color-coding the days.
Precisely. But the core issue is that we are designing these routines for a phantom. We're building them for what we could call the Sunday night version of ourselves.
Wait, let's pause there, because I want to make sure I understand this.
Yeah.
You're saying my ambition is actually my enemy here? It feels wrong to plan for, the worst version of myself instead of the best?
It does feel wrong, but it's neurologically pragmatic. The Sunday night self is a completely idealized, fictitious person. This is the version of you who naturally wakes up before the alarm, cheerfully exercises, eats a perfect diet, drinks a gallon of water, and, has the mental bandwidth to learn 50 new foreign vocabulary words without breaking a sweat. But, how often are you actually that person?
Maybe twice a year, if the weather is absolutely perfect.
Exactly. So when you build a system that requires the Sunday night self to execute it, you are completely ignoring the actual tired person you are on a random Wednesday evening.
After 3 stressful meetings and an hour in traffic.
Yes. When Wednesday hits, your cognitive reserves are just depleted. If your plan demands peak performance, your brain simply rejects the task entirely.
So you don't do a lesser version of the plan, you just abandon it completely.
You abandon it.
So the ambition essentially creates a wall you can't climb over. If that hyper-organized 50-word-a-day schedule is a trap, what does a functional alternative actually look like? How do you fit language learning into a life that's already full of friction?
Well, you start by analyzing where that friction comes from. The sources point out a massive structural mistake beginners make, which is treating studying like a formal event, with a capital E.
Oh, the pre-study routine. This part of the transcript was incredibly illuminating. You decide it's time to study, but you don't just start.
Right, never.
First, you have to sit down at the designated desk, you have to locate the specific notebook, you search for the exact right YouTube video to watch.
You open the dictionary app on your phone.
Yes. You clear away the clutter on your desk surface, you go to the kitchen to get a glass of water, you meticulously adjust your ergonomic chair.
And 15 minutes later, you haven't looked at a single foreign word, but you feel completely exhausted.
Why is that? It's just preparation.
Because that preparation is heavily disguised procrastination. By turning the act of studying into an event, you're front-loading the activity with decision fatigue.
Like deciding which pen to use.
Exactly. Every small choice, which pen, which video, how to sit, burns through your limited daily willpower. The friction required to simply cross the starting line becomes so high that your brain registers the study session as a threat to its energy reserves.
Wow. So the solution presented in the sources is to dismantle the event entirely. Stop making the language announce itself with trumpets.
Right, just weave it in.
The speakers suggest incorporating the language into time that already exists in your schedule, like you listen to a podcast while you're getting dressed in the morning.
Or you play music in your target language while you're scrambling eggs.
Or you put on a conversational audio track while you're on your 30-minute commute to work, looking out the window dramatically, of course.
Naturally. But by utilizing the hidden pockets of time in your day, you essentially bypass the friction. You don't have to decide to sit down at a desk, because you already have to commute anyway.
Right.
You are simply layering the language over an existing automated habit.
I struggle with this concept a bit, though. If I'm just casually listening to a podcast while I am frantically searching for my car keys or, trying not to burn my breakfast, I feel like I'm cheating.
Cheating.
Yeah, like I'm not really paying attention. Doesn't actual measurable learning require a desk, a highlighter, and your full, undivided cognitive focus?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how the human brain actually acquires language, the answer is a definitive no.
Really?
Yeah, we have a bias toward thinking that learning must be painful to be effective. Rigorous focused study certainly has its place for specific grammatical concepts, sure.
Okay, that makes sense.
But for overall acquisition, the sheer power of volume and exposure is infinitely more critical. When you demand high-friction desk study, you might manage an hour a week before burning out.
Right.
But when you layer language onto your daily routines, you create consistent, low-friction exposure. You're basically bathing your brain in the natural rhythm, the intonation, and the common sentence structures of the language.
Without the immense cognitive load of feeling like you're being tested.
Exactly. Over a year, listening to a 15-minute podcast on the train every single day will yield drastically better results than forcing yourself to sit at a desk for a grueling 2-hour session every Sunday.
That makes the process feel much more survivable.
It is.
But even if you manage to avoid the desk and you successfully transition to listening on your commute, there's another trap waiting for you. The sources reveal a major pitfall beginners fall into while they're consuming content.
Oh, yes.
It's the overwhelming urge to be a perfectionist.
The archaeological dig approach to language learning.
It is such an accurate description. The source transcript details the urge to understand every single word you hear.
So common.
You start watching a 10-minute video in your target language. 5 seconds in, you hit an unknown word. So you pause the video, you open your dictionary app,
You type the word in.
you read the definition, you switch back to the video, you hit play. 3 seconds later, another unknown word. Pause. Dictionary. Type. Switch back. Play.
It's exhausting just hearing you describe it.
Right. Suddenly, a light, entertaining 10-minute video has morphed into a grueling 30-minute archaeological dig.
And consider the cognitive cost of doing that. Every time you pause and switch to the dictionary, you incur a context-switching penalty.
A context-switching penalty. What does that mean exactly?
Basically, your brain dumps the short-term memory of the sentence structure, the emotional tone of the speaker, and the narrative flow of the video. just to process the translation of a single isolated word.
Oh, wow. So by the time you finish the video, you've completely destroyed the context.
You have.
Not to mention, you've completely destroyed any enjoyment you might have had. Which ties directly into another form of self-sabotage. The sources mention choosing content that looks serious rather than content you actually care about.
Oh, the educational trap.
Yes. We get into this mindset of, I am learning a difficult language, therefore I must consume difficult media. So you force yourself to watch a dry, hour-long documentary about macroeconomics.
And 20 minutes in, you're agonizingly bored.
Because you don't even care about macroeconomics in your native language.
Exactly. Which creates the perfect environment for the distraction trap. When the material is dry and the cognitive load is high, your brain will desperately search for an exit strategy.
The speaker in the source actually admits to falling into this exact trap. They open their phone with this specific, intentional goal of watching a highly educational pronunciation video.
Let me guess.
The algorithm saw an opening. Somehow, 20 minutes later, they found themselves mesmerized by a completely unrelated video of a guy restoring a badly damaged chair.
He is universally relatable. But it also reveals a critical mechanism about attention and acquisition.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The irony highlighted in the sources is that choosing harder, more academic material actively slows down your learning.
Yeah, counterintuitive, right?
Very. Whereas choosing topics you genuinely deeply care about, even if they seem trivial, drastically accelerates it.
Absolutely.
The source mentions a learner who absorbed a massive amount of vocabulary simply because they were obsessed with coffee. They watched videos about grind size, extraction times, roast profiles. Another learner improved through watching football commentary.
And another by listening to gripping true crime documentaries while trapped in a car.
Yes. Why does that work so well?
Well, the mechanism at work here is a shift in primary focus. When you care deeply about the topic, when you desperately need to know who committed the crime, or you are deeply invested in whether that damaged chair can actually be restored, the language itself stops being the main event.
So the meaning becomes the main event.
Exactly. Your brain's effective filter, which is this psychological wall of anxiety and self-consciousness that blocks learning, it lowers dramatically.
That makes a lot of sense.
You stop filtering everything through a rigid word-by-word translation matrix, and your brain starts naturally processing the language as a vehicle for urgent information.
And that subconscious processing is the gateway to actual fluency.
It really is.
I love that concept. The meaning takes over. But pragmatically, if we're supposed to stop pausing every 5 seconds to use a dictionary, how do we actually handle the words we don't know?
Well, the source offers a two-pronged solution. First, you have to learn to choose your purpose.
Okay.
Sometimes your purpose is just broad exposure. You listen purely for the general idea.
Yeah.
You let the unknown words slide right past you.
So you embrace the ambiguity and just let the story carry you.
Exactly. And then you balance that broad exposure with moments of highly intentional listening.
Right. Instead of agonizing over a 30-minute documentary, you choose a tiny 1 to 2 minute clip. You replay that short section 4 or 5 times. You actively listen to the pronunciation. You pluck out exactly 1 or 2 useful expressions, and then you move on. You're intentionally giving yourself permission to not understand everything.
This fundamentally changes how we should look at vocabulary acquisition. We know how to listen now without burning out. But how do we actually make those new expressions stick?
That's the real challenge.
Right. How do we simplify the process of retaining words without returning to the dreaded blank notebook?
It's genuinely one of the most frustrating feelings in the adult learning experience. You learn a new word in the morning, you understand its definition perfectly, you write out a beautiful, grammatically flawless example sentence.
You feel incredibly intelligent.
You do. And the very next morning, the word is completely utterly gone.
Oof.
You can picture exactly where it was written on the page. You might even know it started with the letter B, but the word itself has vanished from your brain.
Which proves that seeing a word once is absolutely not the same as being able to retain it.
Definitely. So what's the fix?
Well, this touches on the difference between semantic memory, which is just facts and data, and episodic or spatial memory.
Okay, break that down for me.
Random textbook sentences do not stick easily in the adult brain because they lack physical and emotional context. To simplify acquisition, you have to bypass the abstract and anchor the vocabulary to your actual physical reality.
And the sources give a brilliant, tangible example of this, the messy drawer.
It perfectly illustrates how spatial memory works.
One of the speakers was struggling to remember the phrase, "I haven't got around to." It's a bulky, somewhat awkward string of words for a beginner.
Very awkward.
So instead of writing it 50 times in a notebook, they connected the phrase to a specific drawer in their house. We all know the drawer.
Well, we all have one.
It's the one in the kitchen filled with tangled charging cables, dead AA batteries, old receipts, and like one mysterious silver key that you're terrified to throw away.
Exactly. And by looking at that specific physical space, the learner thought, I haven't got around to cleaning that drawer.
And the second they connected the abstract linguistic phrase to a tangible, real-life object that they interact with daily, the phrase suddenly had a place to live in their brain.
Because they recruited the hippocampus, which handles spatial memory, to help store the language.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, every single time they walk past that drawer in the kitchen, the physical environment acts as a trigger, prompting the linguistic recall naturally, without them having to open a textbook.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means that simplifying vocabulary acquisition is not about increasing your volume. It is entirely about increasing your context.
100%.
Having 12 useful, actively used expressions that live in your kitchen, your car, and your daily life is infinitely more powerful than having 50 abstract words memorized on a lonely piece of paper.
Furthermore, the sources emphasize that physical context should be paired with emotional context. Language isn't just a string of data, it carries rhythm, stress, intent.
The acting element.
Yes.
The transcript points out that if you learn a phrase like, "You've got to be kidding me," you shouldn't just recite it monotonously like a robot.
Right, you've got to be kidding me.
Exactly, no. You have to mimic the emotion. Say it out loud with a slightly frightening, intense tone. Feel the annoyance in the phrase. Or use practical anticipation. If you know you have to make a phone call or step into a meeting, practice your opening lines out loud right before you do it.
This raises an important question, though.
What's that?
We've outlined these incredibly effective strategies, right?
Yeah.
Connecting words to messy drawers, acting out phrases with emotion, absorbing true crime podcasts on the commute.
Yeah.
But how do we handle the inevitable days when our motivation simply flatlines? Because shifting from rate memorization to contextual absorption is powerful, but it still requires you to consistently engage with the material.
And that reality is exactly where the sources deliver what I consider their most compassionate and brilliant framework. They openly acknowledge that life is going to get in the way.
It always does.
People get sick, commutes go wrong, work gets overwhelming. So instead of having one rigid plan that completely breaks the moment you have a bad day, they suggest building two distinct plans on a normal day version and a tired day version.
It is a phenomenal approach to protecting the habit loop.
Let's break down how this works. Your normal day routine might look like a solid, productive session. Maybe 20 minutes of focused study, reading 5 pages of a book, and doing 10 minutes of speaking practice.
Sounds great.
But then a brutal Wednesday hits. You're exhausted, the dog threw up, and you barely have the energy to make dinner. On a rigid, ambitious plan, you'd look at that 20-minute requirement, do 0 minutes, feel an immense wave of guilt, and likely avoid studying for the next week.
Which is the death of fluency.
Exactly. But with the tired day plan, your threshold for success drops dramatically. Your tired day routine is simply 5 minutes of study, read exactly 1 page, and say just 3 sentences out loud. That is the entire requirement.
From a neuroplasticity standpoint, consistency trumps intensity every single time.
Really? Even just 3 sentences?
Yes, the human brain strengthens neural pathways far more effectively through small, frequent daily interactions with a language than it does through a massive 2-hour binge study session followed by 6 days of guilt-ridden avoidance.
That makes total sense.
By having a tired day plan, you're maintaining the identity of a learner even when your energy is at 0.
I cannot overstate how freeing it is to give yourself permission to just say 3 sentences out loud and genuinely count it as a total win for the day.
It's a huge shift in perspective.
Because having one bad day shouldn't require you to restart your entire life on Monday. As the source transcript jokes, Monday has suffered enough.
It really has.
We push our strict diets to Monday, our intense exercise plans to Monday, cleaning out the garage to Monday. We do not need to push our language guilt onto Monday, too. Just say your 3 sentences, declare victory, and go to sleep.
The irony is that the most effective routine rarely looks impressive. It isn't the one with 7 colors and intricate arrows.
Right.
The optimal routine is simply the one you can still manage to execute on a busy, exhausting Wednesday.
It's about replacing rigid, self-defeating mindsets with flexible, resilient ones. Instead of saying the incredibly dangerous phrase, I don't have time, which usually gives you permission to do absolutely nothing, you reframe it.
How so?
You say, I try to get some listening in. Instead of demanding 2 uninterrupted hours at a desk, you say, I practice in short bursts. 10 minutes on the train, 5 minutes while making coffee.
It might not look like a heroic cinematic study montage, but it's the exact mechanism by which real, lasting fluency is built.
Absolutely.
It is the slow, steady accumulation of exposure. It's allowing the language to naturally seep into the cracks of your day rather than trying to force it through the front door with a battering ram.
So let's take a step back and recap the core insights from this deep dive. If you're a beginner starting a language journey or someone restarting for the 100th time, the sources are offering a clear blueprint to avoid the mistakes that kill motivation. Ditch the complex, color-coded schedules. They're built for a phantom version of yourself, and they will not survive the week. Stop treating listening like an exhausting archaeological dig where you look up every single word and destroy the joy of the story.
Let the unknown words go.
Yes. Simplify your vocabulary acquisition by giving your new words a real-world, physical place to live, like that messy drawer in your kitchen. And most importantly, protect your habit by having a clearly defined plan for your tired days.
Ultimately, the paradigm shift here is about moving away from friction and toward flow. And it leaves us with a somewhat provocative thought to ponder.
Ooh, what's that?
What if the feeling of effortless fluency you're chasing doesn't actually come from applying maximum effort to a perfect, grueling study plan? What if, instead, it comes from abandoning the effort of studying altogether and simply letting the language live in the mundane, messy, everyday moments of your life?
Wow, that reframing takes so much the pressure off. Remember that pristine, blank notebook we talked about at the beginning? The one filled with so much promise? Maybe the secret to fluency isn't forcing yourself to fill it with 50 words a day. Maybe the real secret is just leaving the notebook on the shelf, getting a little messy in the real world, and letting the language meet you exactly where you are. Even if that means just whispering 3 sentences to your messy drawer on a very tired Wednesday.
I love that.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take these insights, throw out the color-coded schedules, and go have some genuine fun with your learning journey.